I believe that this one deserves a similar warning as the previous one got, that this is based on my feelings, on my expectations and experience with reading and now writing, and that none of what I'm about to say is based on any professional training or should be followed by anyone. I am not very comfortable with the mentor archetype in general. A character or an institution that teaches the protagonist everything, shows him how it's done, while being an all knowing, experienced it all, lived through everything, know the answer to every question, and usually the answer is exceedingly cryptic, mystified version of a fact that the protagonist should have been able to figure out by himself. And all that usually leads to the protagonist being on a sort of a leash to these characters or institutions. What I want is a protagonist that has to figure it out on his own through effort, because it has to be effort. On the other side of that coin is a Mary Sue character that gets everything immediately handed over to him without any experience, and that is to me equally as bad as completely robbing my protagonist of the ability to innovate, experiment, and learn through experience and observation. Failing, I'm fine with the protagonist meeting with other more experienced characters and picking up a hint or two along the way. But I much prefer the protagonist, let's say, finding his own way, even though he may fall flat face first into the mud many times and face consequences of his inexperienced self getting into situations that are far above his skill level. It just feels that the mentor archetype dumps down the protagonist's own ability to improvise and overcome significantly, something I value highly in a protagonist. The balance is extremely important, obviously, as I've mentioned before, because what I want to portray anyway is effort, not some fate, god, legacy, bloodline gifted talent that always delivers whatever the protagonist needs. But what I want to avoid is creating a protagonist that just comfortably falls into a track path made for him by someone else, never questioning the rules and certainties that are considered absolute in his universe. I said it before, I don't want a chosen one. And the conclusion to today's intro would be that I don't want some trained monkey either. For sure that the mentor character can be done in a way that I wouldn't find annoying, but I genuinely have a hard time picking up one that would be just completely correct in my eyes. Montolio de Bruschi of Drist from the Salvatore books is one that comes close, but there are still some interactions between these two characters that I don't find believable or enjoyable. I'll have some more to say about this certain type of characters because it also belongs to the side characters section of my intros, but this one is directly connected to protagonists as well, so I thought it wise to at least mention it And now I am going to move on to better things, the rapid arrows. Last time, three boys wanted to meet their heroes, and they did in a rather unexpected way. And this time is the celebration of Christmas. Mirek came up with a way to spice things up for the club members. They'll do an event outside. Everyone has high expectations. Speedy's been crafting his presents for the rest of the club members for the past 2 months, and meanwhile Yarka and Mirek are packaging theirs, planning a small prank to bring the gifts under the tree way earlier than the rest of the boys, and then they'll just pretend that they have nothing and are just going to take the gifts the rest of the Rapid Arrows Club are going to give them. So they arrive at the Black Valley where the event will happen. They find a decent tree to decorate in the evening. When everyone comes back, they leave the gifts and cover up their tracks so that no one can tell that they've been there before, completely unaware that someone saw them hiding the gifts under the tree. Then we see an unfamiliar boy bending over the gifts, elated that he's never had such a Christmas event before. Later comes the evening, the club is approaching the designated tree. Yarka and Mirek empty handed, while the rest of the boys have arms full of gifts. Mirek teasingly saying that they brought nothing and that they are truly thrilled by the amount of gifts that the rest of the club members brought them. Indra calls him out on it, that it's obviously another joke of his, but when they do arrive at the place where they left the gifts earlier, their hiding spot is indeed empty. So the only thing they can do is to sing the Christmas carols and then begin the search for the disappeared gift. When they are done singing, Speedy notices someone approaching them, and it's the boy we saw earlier with all the gifts Yarka and Mirek hid before. And we find a rather tragic story for a supposedly happy day like Christmas. The boy is an orphan sleeping in a nearby mine. He saw them hide the gifts and took them, but when he heard them singing the Christmas carols, something in that made him regret that decision, and he decided to come back with the gifts and come clean to the boys. And because they are who they are, instead of being angry at him, they forgive him in the name of Christmas, being the holidays of happiness, love, and forgiveness. Invite him to their celebration and even share some of the gifts with him. Mirek praising him and asking him to always be the way he was today. In the next one, we see Indra being asked by another boy if he's going to go skating as well, since it's already below zero and the river, I guess, it's already frozen. Indra tells that to the rest of the club members, and Mirek is not exactly convinced that it's safe already, and they decide to go check it out, with Redcap promising them that he'll show them some new ice skating technique. Prior to their arrival at the scene, the only technique he shows them is how to land on his backside when he slips on a frozen puddle, earning laughter from Speedy, who in turn earns a tongue lashing from the fallen hero, bringing back the good old planter quote unquote insult. And then they finally arrive and they see the boy from earlier skating around. Mirek yells at him to immediately come back, that it's probably just the surface that's frozen and that the ice won't be able to bear his weight. The boy dismisses their concerns, intent on proving them wrong. He gives a bit more strength to it, and the ice immediately breaks. He's screaming for help, and rapid arrows are ready to lend their hand to him. Indra even intends to climb down directly and attempts to reach the boy, which Mirek immediately stops, sends the boys to bring a plank, and also tells them to take off their jackets to use as a improvised rope. They tie them together, then they tie Mirek with them, and he slowly crawls over the plank towards the rapidly weakening boy. He tosses him the last jacket to grab onto, and then they do manage to drag him out of the water and into safety. Well, his life saved, but he's completely drenched and freezing, which in turn would most probably lead to some serious consequences, health issues, but fortunately for him, a kind man offers him a ride so that he can get home as soon as possible to warm up. And the boys learned his lesson, promising to never step on the first ice ever again. And that's where I'm going to stop for today. The intro, I think, again, something that I really wanted to go over. And next time, more Epidaros adventures.